Welcome everyone back here again. My name is Jerry Silverman. I'm going to kind of go through some typical workflows, like how you can create a quick application prototype with Flash Catalyst, and then kind of wire that up to data with some of the new data services features in Flash Builder 4. Go through some of the integration points that are really great between Flash Builder 4 and Flash Professional CS5. There's a lot of kind of back and forth that you can do between those two tools to kind of work with whichever workflow you're used to or whichever workflow is optimized for you. And we're also going to talk a little bit about Dreamweaver. I know that may not be the most often used tool in your toolkit right now at GE, but there are a few pretty great breakout features in Dreamweaver that I think any web developer or web designer would be excited to know about, just kind of moving down the pike, especially if GE, you guys as end users may not be in charge of the decision of what specifically gets deployed on all the desktops or what licenses are kind of distributed to GE. But if it's on your desktop already, or if it's something that's available to you, you'll know about it. So, and of course, all the other tools in the Web Premium arsenal are there for you. So, kind of to tread lightly on the new features inside of the entire, kind of across the suite. Interaction design, which I know that you guys do quite a bit of, is, it can sometimes be like pulling. And Flash Catalyst, this new tool, is really there to make that a lot more approachable. So, stuff like just creating very simple transitions and states and buttons without the huge headache of having to code them, create custom code for every prototype or every time you want to kind of just throw something together quickly. So Flash Catalyst really makes that a lot easier. So they're in Flash, and as kind of Flash gurus in your own right, you probably know about this or been working with it quite intensively on the Actionscript side, which is the new text engine or the new Flash, the new text layout framework in Flash. This has existed for a long time as a collection of ActionScript libraries where you could do a lot of really dynamic typography effects in using Flash Player 10 that were never possible before with Flash Player 9 and previous. But now in Flash CS5, we've actually given a user interface to that, so that styling text is not just something that you can accomplish via ActionScript, but you can actually use the Flash tool to do that. There's a new code snippets panel, again, kind of making those everyday tasks of coding up, little things that you don't necessarily need to be spending the time coding. So you can create snippets. You can actually make your own custom snippets and distribute them to your work group. And a lot of big improvements to the ActionScript panel in Flash Pro, and we'll have a look at a little bit at that. The 3D extrusions, now that's only really talking about Photoshop, not currently a user interface element inside of Flash. And CMS support and CSS inspection in Dreamweaver, obviously a long time oft-requested feature inside of Dreamweaver to support the blogging frameworks and CMS frameworks like WordPress and Joomla and Drupal and TypePad. So, developers who are even kind of simple web admins who want to be able to, look at the CSS and do kind of custom code modification in there in an integrated environment, now have that inside of Dreamweaver. There's also, this new service which has been in beta on Adobe Labs for a while called Browser Lab, which allows you to send out your HTML, CSS, JavaScript-based web pages out to kind of test them against all of the popular browser services out there. Or browser, when I say browser services, I really just mean browsers on all of the various common operating systems. So we'll just look at that a little bit, since that's another one of those CS Live online services that Adobe has started to provide in the CS5 timeframe. Then integration between Flash Builder, Catalyst, Flash Professional, obviously unparalleled integration amongst those tools, and we're going to look at that pretty closely. And then when it comes to universal mobile application development for iPhone, BlackBerry, Android, and other devices, now you'd have to be living in a deep, dark cave to not have been reading all of the headlines lately about the duke it out fight that's been going on with Apple and Adobe. So we'll definitely talk about that kind of coming forward when we go out to our mobile story. And then, of course, our platform evangelist, Renown, who's coming on after lunch at 1 o'clock, can kind of talk from a platform perspective about what Adobe's kind of future roadmap is looking like for getting out to all the devices. But with taking that iPhone piece out of it for right now, we're going to talk more about mobile application development and what the tools are and what that looks like. So, without further ado, no more PowerPoint, and let's actually get on in. New features related to Omniture acquisition is a question from Will. And yeah, they're actually within Flash and Dreamweaver. There are actually panels within which you can access. If you are an existing Omniture customer, you're able to actually play with some of those Omniture services like Test and Target if you're going to be doing A/B testing, or Omniture Site Catalyst, which will actually look through and do analytics on a particular campaign or a particular user interface element to decide whether or not it's a stumbling block to get somewhere else on the website, or whether or not it's very popular, and will allow you to set up automation options for optimizing the experience on the website for a variety of different use cases. So it's not actually going to be part of my demo today. I mean, I can actually definitely talk about it, and there's more interest, we can kind of pursue that maybe offline to this discussion. But so the first, now I'm not sure if you saw in my PowerPoint deck, I actually, since last time I met GE, I've been working in the government vertical. So one of the examples that I typically show when I'm talking about these new Flash tools is kind of government focused, so you're going to have to bear with me on that. Eventually I'll get to an example that's a little bit more generic. But so the first example that I'm going to show is actually starting off inside of Adobe Illustrator. And one of the kind of typical examples that you'll see of Internet applications or rich Internet applications, desktop applications, and we're all aware of this, is that they contain various states of applications. You'll start off on kind of a landing page or a home page, and in this case, this application would be a kind of a personnel application to look through all of the various members of the 111th Congress, figure out who they are, what party they are, and then maybe go to a type of senators panel where we could have a simple directory of who those senators are, what their names are, what they look like, stuff like that. So as you can see, we already have a variety of panels just inside of this Illustrator comp, and this is just a regular .ai file. It's not anything with a good amount of interactivity embedded in it. And then over in this Illustrator file, we've just kind of comped out for our prototype what that headshot is going to look like of a typical senator, and maybe this would be the hover state over here, and we haven't really comped it out, but the hover state would be what that senator's name is, what the party is, what state they're from, and then we'd also have kind of a scroll bar that would allow us to scroll down that list of all the different senators inside of the Congress, and we'd be able to kind of get that information from them. Now, obviously, this type of information would come from a database, and right now I have, just to kind of set up the demo a little bit more, I have MAMP running, which is the Mac Apache MySQL PHP server. Now, and just a disclaimer that I'm running all of this locally via MySQL and PHP. You don't have to be a PHP person to be able to take advantage of all the features I'm going to show, but that's what I'm going to be using for the sake of simplicity at this point. Obviously, if you guys are doing a lot of Cold Fusion, you could extend this out to that as well. So just looking very simply at this Congress comp, I'm going to now switch on over to Flash Catalyst and import it. And so you can create a new project from an Illustrator file, from a Photoshop file. I'm just going to bring in from the desktop. I've got a GE folder. I'm going to bring in that Congress UI. Right? And usually you'll just get a dialog box giving you a whole bunch of fidelity options, right? How do you want to automatically convert the text? Do you want to have them as vector outlines? Do you want to keep it editable? Any of the filters that are coming over, do you want to flatten those out? Do you want to keep them editable? If you have gradients, do you want to keep the gradients editable? So there's a lot of ability in Flash Catalyst to continue the work, the creative work that you started in your native design application. Right? If you've got blend modes, do you want to flatten out those blend modes, or do you want to kind of automatically convert them? So I'm just going to click OK on this to bring in that Illustrator file. And now what's going on in the background is that Catalyst is basically turning this into a Flex 4 project. Oops, I happen to have imported the wrong one. I brought in Congress panels. So I'm actually going to close that out. All right. It wouldn't be a demo if it can go wrong right off the bat. And let's see, I'm going to bring in Congress comp. Here we go. And just with all the same defaults clicked, I'm going to bring that out. So it's turning it into a Flex project. Now, Flash Catalyst has a code view that just the same way that Dreamweaver and the other Adobe coding applications have. And up here, now that you can see that we have brought this in with pretty good pixel fidelity, you can have a look up here in the code view and look at what the Flex project is that was created from this project here. So this is the main XML file that we haven't created any states of our application. So basically, all of the gradients are described in code, and this is mostly MXML at this point, so it's very light, very light code. And then you see that over here on the right-hand side, you've got your project navigator, just like you do in Flex Builder and Flash Builder, showing you exactly what was built out in the different libraries. Right now, we have a one SWIC file that kind of denotes that this was created in Flash Catalyst. So I'm going to go on back to Design View, and we'll get into the the project project folder a little bit later on. So every application has to have states, as you can see. Right, we've brought over everything with pixel perfect fidelity. So the first state of our application is going to be this landing page. And up here in our Pages and States panel, we have page 1. I'm just going to call this, let's just call it the Congress page. And now we can duplicate this state just using the Duplicate State button over here. And I'm going to make this into the Senators page. Right, so now that that's the Senators page, I can actually turn off the Congress info and turn on Senators. But actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make kind of an interesting transition. I'm going to grab this Congress info panel, and I'm actually just going to take the whole panel here, and I am going to convert it into a custom or a generic component. And what that's going to do is just make it so that I can grab it and move it. Oops. See, I hadn't grabbed the whole thing, so I'm going to undo what I did there. It's good to kind of do these things in kind of an organized fashion. So I'm going to go back to Congress here and grab the entire Congress info folder up here. So now I've got the entire folder, and as you can see, every graphic element in there is selected. And so now, with that selected, I'm going to I can actually use this, heads-up display if I want to, and I could just optimize those as vector graphics, or I could come down and turn that into a generic component that can then be moved on and off my stage more effectively. So now I'll go ahead and duplicate that new state for the Senators panel. All right, so there we go. And in my Senators page, or my Senators state, this Congress panel is going to be off stage. Right? We're going to move it kind of off there, and we'll turn on our Senators panel. We'll turn off the Congress info. Now notice, by the way, that once we turn that into a custom component, the folder definition kind of went away, and it's been turned into a Congress info custom component, and that's kind of the nomenclature that that Flash Catalyst gives. It'll give it a custom component nomenclature, and that'll follow it all the way through. Of course, you don't have to keep that name, right? You can name it whatever you want inside Catalyst, but that's kind of the default. So zooming back out, now we have our Senators panel, and that's going to be right there on our Senators page. And now we can duplicate that state and call this our Votes panel. Right? We can grab everything that's in the Senators panel, and let's, instead of moving it to the right, we can move that off to the left, and also turn that off, turn the Votes panel on, and now we have 3 states of our application right there, and we can create very simple transitions. We also have these buttons up here on the top, and these buttons are obviously the user interface elements that we want to be able to use. So I'm just going to zoom in there, and I'm just going to grab each one of these buttons, and let's see, I'm just going to convert 2 of these buttons for the sake of time. So I can right-click here, right, and convert artwork to component. We're just going to call that a button. And notice that our heads-up display changes to show that we have an up, over, down, and disabled state, and I can start changing what I want the appearance of the overstate to look like. So the overstate here, for this button, let's say I'm just going to kind of double-click. Let me hit the escape key. And I want to choose not the text, but kind of the background. So for the overstate, I come on into my Properties panel. Down over here, notice that the fill color was preserved from Illustrator to Catalyst. So I'm going to give that a green for the overstate, and notice that the green has updated there. That's our overstate. That's our upstate. Now I'm just going to double-click on the canvas or on the stage to get back to the Senators button. And so now I'll convert this to a button, and I'll use the heads-up display. But let's say I actually want to change what the appearance of this is using an Illustrator effect. Now, we don't really have Illustrator effects, inside of Flash Catalyst. So the method that I would use to accomplish this is I would right-click and I'd say Edit in Adobe Illustrator CS5. So what would happen is the Illustrator would pop open, and I would get this FXG file, and that's kind of the graphical interchange format, or flex graphics format, to do these changes. And so now the original Congress comp isn't being opened. It's an FXG file that's being opened there, and you'll just notice congresscomp.fxg is the file that we're working on. We have this little dashboard up here telling the user that we're editing from Flash Catalyst, and when we're finished making our edits, we just click the done key. We don't necessarily have to save it or close it. Illustrator and Flash Catalyst are able to round trip that way. So let's say for our overstate, right, so here we go. Now we can turn on the overstate here and turn off the upstate, and we can go on. And remember, this is giving us inside of Illustrator access to the up, over, down, and disabled states of our buttons, which is a really nice touch. So let's say we're going to grab this path here, and instead of that fill, we can just choose a different color. Let me see. Maybe there's an easier way to kind of get some colors here. Let's show our color swatches. Oh, I don't have any color swatches. So you know what? Let's see. I'm just going to choose a nice red. There we go. But I actually want to put some effects on that text that I wouldn't ordinarily have. So I'm going to grab that text. I'm going to come up into effects, and I don't know, I'll just add a drop shadow. Let's see, let's preview that. Zoom in a little bit. I can't do it with the dialog engaged, but let's make our opacity 100%, and let's just make a 1 pixel offset with a 0 pixel blur. Right, so that is going to come in nice and focused there. All right, I'll go ahead and click OK. So now that I'm done, you can see that we've given, and this is just a very simple example, obviously, drop shadow. So I'm going to go ahead and click Done, and click OK, and it'll kick me back. Illustrator is going to kick me back into Flash Catalyst. And now if I want to view the overstate of that button, notice that we have that drop shadow, we have that overstate, and so we have that good round-tripping workflow inside, between Catalyst and Illustrator. That's really great. So now that I've created those, up and overstates for my buttons, now I actually want to, send them around to various states of the application. So, clicking on this button here, I have an interactions panel where I can add an interaction. So I'm going to, play a transition to a state, and that state is going to be the Congress state. Notice that all of the states are listed when we pull them down, and they're color-coded, so you remember, exactly where they are, right? The red Congress state corresponds to the red over here in the Pages panel, so it helps you remember where you are. And that's basically just going to happen when in any state. Right? So I'll go ahead and click OK. For this button, we want to add the interaction that on click, we want it to go to the Senators panel when it's the state. Right, there we go. Now we can come up and say File, Run Project, and this is just going to build out our Swift file that'll start running in a browser and just allow us to kind of preview what we're doing here. So I think Firefox is going to open up right now. And yep, there we go. And so, right, very simple up and over states, right, take us. Now there's no real transitions happening in here, and so what we might want to do is come on back into Flash Catalyst. Right, from Congress, we can come down into our timelines. And so from the Congress panel to the Senators panel, you can see that there's no fading out or moving. So we can just click this smooth transition button down here and make that transition happen. We actually have a little play button to show. Remember how we moved the panel off. So hopefully you're seeing that via Connect, that there's that wonderful animation. And then from Senators to Congress, we can hit the smooth transition button as well. So that transition will come in as well. So if I just hit Command-Enter to recompile that. So if you're doing a lot of application prototyping, this is just going to save you a ton of time just to be able to visualize what some simple transitions, what some simple states are going to be inside of your document. So another great kind of workflow between Illustrator and Catalyst is the ability to just, if you don't want to import an entire Illustrator file, you can just really simply copy-paste. So going back into Illustrator, if I open up that, those kind of UI comps, like I'm just going to grab the Senator picture and the underlying hover state, and I'm just going to hit Command-C to copy it. I'll jump back into Catalyst, and just making sure, by the way, always respect the hierarchy, just as a best practice. Respect the hierarchy of where you are inside of your layers. So I'm obviously want to paste this above the kind of solid rectangle inside the Senators panel. So I'll just make sure that I have that selected. I'm just going to do a Command-V to paste what I brought in from Illustrator. I'll click OK. It's just going to paste that Senator's head. There we are. And I'm going to move the Senator around with my arrow keys to make sure that he's in there. And then I'll jump back to Illustrator and also jump back to Illustrator and grab that scroll bar. And I'll do a Command-C to copy it. Come back to Flash Catalyst, paste it in. Right now, blend modes. I want to flatten my blend modes. I don't need editable filters here. I'm not going to be doing too much. So it's always good if you're going to bring over these vectors to flatten as much as you can. So gradients. Well, yeah, sure, automatic, whatever. Maybe we'll mess with the gradients at some other point. So we're going to go ahead and drop that scroll bar in there. Now, again, just like with the button, you can grab that scroll bar and turn it into, this is going to be a vertical scroll bar. And so now that it has been written as a scroll bar, except we have to, Catalyst is giving us a warning saying, well, let's go ahead and edit the parts of this scroll bar to say what the thumb and what the track is. So I'll go ahead and edit these parts. Right, this is known in scroll bar terminology as the thumb. Right, that little thumb, and then that's the track that the scroll bar scrolls on. Right, very nice. So now that we've named all the parts, Catalyst stops bothering us with a message telling us that we have to define the part. There we go. We've defined it very simply, and now we can kind of move this around a little bit, grab the senator and the backdrop and the scroll bar, and turn this into a flex data list. And let's see. Yep, the recorded icon will be available. So the selected object has effects or interactions attached to it. If you continue, they may be deleted. Well, I hope they won't be deleted, but we're going to do our best. So we're going to turn this into a data list, and as you know, as application developers, everything in the world is a data list on the internet. You know, we're always just constantly looking at lists of data. We're visualizing data. We're pulling it in, but you know, to a large extent, and you know, I have a bunch of MySQL, you know, databases lined up here, right? I've got one specifically for showing Flex. I've got a, oh gosh, where is it? Right, Flex for politicians. The whole set of databases where you can just look in, right? This is what we're basically going to be pulling in is a little bit later in Flash Builder is, you know, their kind of all of their information, you know, what their names are, where they live, what their phone numbers are, their public websites, and stuff like that. So, you know, so everything, but no matter what you're visualizing, whether it's information about your, you know, threats to your IT, or if it's social media graphs, you know, it's all data. So this is just the most simple example that could possibly be shown to you about how to create a data list, but you can just extrapolate this way out to your liking. So again, Catalyst is showing me, you know, edit the parts. I'm going to go ahead and edit the parts of this data list. Obviously, you know, the senator and the hover state are going to be the repeated items, because as in any database, you want to repeat. If you create a service that looks through all of the items in the database, you know, it's going to have to repeat that get for all of the items. So this is a repeated item in the data list. So we're going to choose this part, and we'll define this as the repeated item. All right, so now that we've done that, Flash Catalyst is actually smart enough to say, okay, well, you would probably want to repeat this down, you know, vertically, and then you can kind of change the boundaries of where that data list is going to display. You can also come on back over to the Properties panel over here, and in the Layout window, you can actually change the vertical spacing of the items on that data list. You can also, if I wanted to tile this data list, instead of having it be vertical, I could just click Tile, and notice that now I can change the vertical spacing in my Properties panel. I can change the horizontal spacing. You know, I can change the alignment or the direction of these, and that's really great and very powerful. We also have down next to the timeline, we have this design time data panel that shows us what this data, you know, we're obviously not linked up to a database yet, so what data did Flash Catalyst create that it's dropping into this data list? So this is what it looks like. And if I just click on the second head here, now I haven't actually imported any other data or anything else, but I could very easily just click import. Let's see, where are my, not in my Illustrator comps, but in here, right, here's a few senators. So that's the Democratic senator from Hawaii. So I'll go ahead and import his PNG file, and so now I've selected him, and so you can switch that out really quickly. So his name is, I don't know how to pronounce that, but he's a Democrat, and he is from Hawaii. And so there we go. And if you were to kind of burrow down into the you know, definition of the repeated item, you're going to notice in the breadcrumbing up here that we've got, you know, Congress Comp. That's our main, you know, that's the name of our project. And this is, we're inside the data list, and we're inside repeated item 1 of the data list. And that has a normal, over, and selected state to it. So I am going to, for our normal state, we actually don't need the backdrop, so I'm going to get rid of the backdrop. But for our overstate, notice that Flash Catalyst has actually already given us a bit of an overstate. So I'm going to come on into our Layers panel, and I'm going to turn off that item highlight, and I'm also, for our overstate, going to turn off the image of the senator, because that's not what we wanted to look. We wanted to kind of have a nice hover effect there. And let's see, for selected, we're going to turn off the item highlight, we're going to turn off the image, and we're going to burrow down into the group here and just select that black ellipse. Now we can come back up to our Properties panel and fill that in with a green color instead of, to kind of match the buttons that we had before. Of course, you could set this up in the database to be red or blue, depending on whether they're Democrat or Republican. But just for prototyping example, that's how we're going to do it. So we can also set up in our timelines. We can set up what these transitions are going to look like from normal to over. So if we wanted to, for example, add a really kind of groovy action, we come in here and we could rotate. Well, actually, let's make sure that we have our piece selected here. We could rotate this as 3D from the normal to overstate, right? And we could also kind of drag this and fade it out. And then for the overstate, actually, hold on a second. We want that, and we want that to come on in, and then we also want the other guy, this group here. We also want that to rotate 3D, even though it is it's invisible right now. Let's see what that's going to look like. We just hit play, and data text 1, data text 2. Obviously, we're going to be bringing that data in. So now we have a nice transition when we do that rollover. So that's very nice. So coming on back in here, we can also, by the way, I know you probably noticed that we only have 5 items, 5 repeated items in our data list. We can actually come down here on the lower left-hand side and just add as many rows as we want. So now that we've done that, let's see, we have about 12. Now let's run the project, File, run project. And not only should the scroll bar work, but we should also have those nice, transitions inside of those items for the repeated items. So there we go. We'll go over to senators, and when we roll over them, we've got that nice 3D transition. When we click, it goes over to the selected view, and now we can kind of roll down there and see what's inside of our data list. Very useful, very powerful, feature inside of Flash Catalyst to get that out. Now, we are going to take this application, this Congress application. We can actually just save this, and I'm going to do, because I actually haven't saved it yet, we'll save this out in the GE folder, and let's just call this, congresscomp.fxp, It creates an FXP file, and let me see, I'm just going to click Save. And what was that? I just saw a question come up. 1 second. Whoa, no, not system preferences. What do you guys? Oh, what do you guys? Oh, that's an internal question.
Yeah, that was more to my team.
Well, you might actually, James. You might be able to, down here, if you can see what I'm doing inside the chat pod, you can actually ask specific people. Oh no, well, you might not be able to.
Yeah, it's like 40 people.
Anyway, so
I have a general question for you. So I know one of the big questions that we had last time was the backward compatibility, moving from Catalyst to Flex, and then potentially making changes in Flex, and then moving it back to Catalyst if we had to update. Is that an option at this point, or is that still something we need to consider?
Yeah, no, not really. It's not really an option. I mean, going back out to FXP once you're in Flash Builder is not really a.
Is that something you guys are looking at doing, or is it sort of off the table?
Well, Flash Catalyst is a 1.0 release, so it's definitely something that folks have asked about. honestly, not being on the product team, I'm not sure what the volume of demand for that type of workflow is.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the use case would be that you just would want to iterate on the application prototype from within Flex instead of iterating from within Catalyst.
Okay. That makes sense. So we can sort of build our base within Catalyst, push it over to Flex, and then continue with the work all in Flex.
Yeah, right. And so that's actually, that was going to be my next step. Was to, you guys still able to see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, good. So yeah, so then the next step is to say File Import Flex Project. Right. So I'd grab that FXP file, and let's come on over to. I put it in the GE folder. Right there, it is as an FXP. I'm going to put this actually on my server in localhost. I'll make a new folder for it called Ungris. Right, so that's where it's going to live. And so, that whole Flex project that I showed in the code view before has now been brought in. So in my default package, I just open up main.mxml, and inside Flash Builder, you have this states panel where you can actually view the various states of your application in the design view. You also have this states pull down right here, where we can look at the senators, look at the votes panel, and see all that stuff. And of course, you can look at the source code, and you can see that there are all of your states laid out right there. If I hold down the command key, I can actually jump to the Actionscript definition, the Flex Actionscript definition of what a state actually is. And this is something that Renown is going to talk about. What the difference in the states model are between Flex 3 and Flex 4 SDK.
Mm-hmm.
To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not sure all the kind of nitty-gritty differences. The component model in Flex 4 is something called Spark, which is quite a bit different than the component model in Flex 3 in that it kind of gives a greater amount of abstraction of the what the Flex component looks like versus its kind of internal functionality. But again, Renown will be able to kind of talk to the nitty-gritty details of that. So now that I've brought in my FXP file, and I can go through to senators. One of the most highly touted new features inside of Flash Builder is the ability to connect up a data list that you create to data services very easily, and to kind of alleviate some of the repetitive service building that you might have to do to wire these up. So there's this new data services panel down here that will allow you to connect to data. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Connect to Data service, and it doesn't really matter. WSDL being the kind of most generic service that you can plug into, and PHP, Cold Fusion, XML. I'm going to choose PHP because that's what I have. I have the Zend framework for Flex installed. I'm going to go ahead and click Next, and it tells me that I have to actually set my project server type to PHP, so I'll go ahead and do that. And Flash Builder actually asks me to validate, what my configuration is. So I already have my, where my server is living and what the root URL is. I click Validate Configuration, and that shuttles me through pretty well. So now it asks me, I want to hook this up to a service. Obviously, I want to create a get all service from the database table that I showed you in, the one that I'm hosting in MySQL. To set up a get all service for this. So, each one of these records inside of this record set can map to, a new member of a new repeated item in the data list. So I'd have to write a service for that. You guys are probably writing all your own custom services, but if you don't have one and you want to just, plug in a down and dirty, easy service, you just put in. You can generate those from a template of services, or you can actually generate it from the bindings and record sets in your database itself. That's actually pretty great. So, it's going to connect to the database, and oh no, wrong password in. I have the wrong username, wrong password. Oh, I have caps lock turned on. That would be it. All right, there we go. And so I'm actually not connecting to the correct database, so I'm going to say flex for politician. Connect to the database, and now, so that Senator's database that I wanted to connect to, or that Senator's table inside of the Flex database, or the MySQL database, I'm now going to connect to. So it's telling me, hey, I'm now going to make a service for you called Senator Service, and that's where it's going to live. It's going to live on your bin debug, in your services folder on your server, and it's really only intended for prototyping in a trusted development environment. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. It's going to go ahead and introspect, that database. And what you're going to see, actually, in a second, when I click Finish, is that Dreamweaver has popped open, and it's giving me a code view of the service that was created. So it's only giving me a preview, showing me what that code looks like, and then it'll automatically bounce me back into Flash Builder. So if I wanted to kind of go back in Dreamweaver and look at the service that was created, right, we already have all of those parameters that we're going to need to connect to the database, and then it just creates a very simple CRUD services. And so get all senators, that's the one that we're actually going to be using for this demo. I'll come back to Flash Builder, and now you can see in the Data Services panel, we actually have a list of that, those CRUD services there. And so get all senators, as you can see, Flash Builder kind of introspected that database and pulled out all of the different bindings within each record set. So that's going to be useful in just a second. All I have to do now is grab the service that I want to apply to my data list and drag it on to the data list. And so we're going to bind it to a new service operation, right? Get all senators, and the data provider is going to be the senator's object. And I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. Now the dummy data disappears, and we have to, bind these individual bindings within the record set to the actual repeated items. So I'm going to go ahead and have a look in my source file, and I'm going to find my data list, which is going to be down here somewhere. I can actually just do a Command F, say data list, data. So, all right, instead of hunting around for it in the code, I'm just going to double-click in Design View. It's a little more familiar to me. Or I can just go into my components. Yeah, I'll just go into my repeated item there. I double-click in my repeated item. And now I'm just going to go to my source panel and link up, right? So here's all of the rich text, right? So there's the actual node at which the name comes in. So instead of text1, I'm actually going to say this guy's last name, last_name. And then over here, right, this is where we find out whether or not he's a Democrat or Republican. So the binding down there is called party. And then the binding over here for Michigan is going to be called state. Right, so, right, because state is down there. And, of course, there's an image that goes with this. Right, so instead of image1, the binding is called image URL. Right, so all I have to do is say file save, or I could, do file save all, because you can just save all the open projects there. And now, when I come up to the run this button, run main or run the application, it's now going to tie up that data list to the database. Here we go, going into our senators panel, and now it's taking a little while. I don't know why my PHP server is slow. Right? But so this is a whole 111th Congress. Right? We view them very nicely. When we roll over, we get all of the custom data that's in there, right? I can click. Right, wonderful. So there's also this, taking this just one step further, you can come up into your data menu up here in Flash Builder, and you can actually generate a details form on this, right? Master detail from the call a service, the Senator CFM service, and we're going to get all senators. That's the operation that we want to do. And when I click finish, it's just going to have this box here that will bring in all of the data that is that is retrieved in that get service. So I already come back out here, and I've done this. I'd have to make that a little prettier to actually show you the end result. So I'm just going to go into senators, and now I'm not going to build the project. I'm just going to come in here and open up this main, which is really the same project, just a little bit prettier, more prettied up, as I suppose you'd say, and hit play and show you that just by adding those fields right now, when I click on when I click on one of these senators, you actually get all of the data coming into these fields. If I were to add a simple submit button, then this would, we'd be able to actually modify, make this a live form to, a live CMS to change data inside of that database. So those are some of the, those are some of the kind of breakout workflows between, creative tools, Flash Catalyst, Flash Builder. Now if I were to kind of open up another project that I had, and let's see, this is RIA, and this is, kind of a more designed application that may or may not already have some services lined up to it. I'm not sure if it does. Let me see what's been done on this one. This is a restaurant finder application. I don't think it's linked up to data right now. Oh yeah, I guess it is. So this is actually looking at a database of restaurants. Right? So again, just the same darn thing, data list coming through here, and I'll click on one of these restaurants, and you can look at reviews. I think, oh no, we don't have, a pie chart here, but a pie chart could go here, and it's very simple, to create, custom data visualizations. As I'm sure you guys are aware, being the bleeding edge of data visualization, using those paper vision classes to do live 3D visualization, which I do not have an example of that, and it sounds really cool. And I really wanted to come hang out with you guys today to see what you were doing. But anyway, you guys should know that I've been spreading that story around Adobe about people doing live paper vision 3D stuff with live data, and they're like, what? Who? So don't be surprised if you guys get a call. But,
so where are you guys now with 3D support with these tools? So we've heard some talk that 10.1 Flash supports some basic 3D stuff. Where are you guys heading in that space?
Flash Player 10 supports a whole lot of 3D stuff.
Right.
The big emphasis on Flash Player 10.1 is on mobile, I have to say, and I'll get to kind of those mobile demos in just a second. But yeah, I mean, Flash Player 10.1 has a huge enhancement to the mobile space, but there hasn't been a big focus on doing anything other than what's already implemented in 3D for Flash. So, I mean, I've seen some pretty amazing 3D examples out there, using the Flash Player 10 and all of those, PaperVision, Sandy, Away 3D, Alternativa. I've seen some really incredible examples, but there's no plans that I know of to kind of enhance that for the next release of Flash Player 10.1.
Okay. So in terms of us continuing down the 3D path with Flash and Flex, does it make sense to still use these other third-party extensions like PaperVision?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Good. Yeah. I have not seen plans anywhere. And look, Renon is much closer to the platform team than me. You know, I'm more on the Creative Suite business unit side, and so he'll be able to tell you what what if any 3D framework library plans Adobe has. But I honestly I think I would have heard about it.
Okay, no, fair enough.
Yeah, I don't think that there is now. You know, once we get talking about the mobile story a little bit, there is on Adobe Labs right now a initiative called the Slider image, or the Slider initiative, and that is to bring kind of a mobile optimized version of the Flex framework out for development. Because right now you can actually do quite a bit on Flash Player, the Flash Player 10.1. You know, private beta that's been going out to with Flex, but there's still a lot of the you know, the human-machine interaction model in Flex is definitely not ideal for the type of processor constraints and you know, interaction constraints you know, that are imposed with these smaller you know, handheld devices. So you know, the Flex for mobile SDK, I mean, it's really just going to be you know, a set of optimizations you know, to specifically create mobile applications. You know, that's on Labs right now. I'm not sure when they're going to start you know, posting the you know, builds the way that they did with Gumbo, but you know, it should be pretty soon, and Renon is going to know a little bit more about that. Okay, so just to keep the demo moving, you know, I've opened up this restaurant guide, and so this has some stuff that's already tied into a database, and this would be, now that we're inside of the sushi restaurant, we actually have a build your order segment of this application where we might actually want to build a sushi order. But, you know, Flash Builder is not the most graphically wonderful tool in the world to do this. So we might have started that sushi order builder inside of Flash and then turn it into a Flex component to include it in our you know, include it in our Flex project, and that would be an SWC or a, you know, a component that you would export from Flash. And so bringing that SWC in is you know, pretty easy process if we're in our RIA, and we're just, you know, you can right click on your libraries and you know, come on in and say import. And we're just going to import you know, from our file system, but you can obviously import from wherever it is that you choose, you know, from any type of directory. So I'm going to come in and grab that sushi builder, or just give it the directory to import from, and then bring in that sushi builder.swc. Go ahead, finish it up, and so now our libraries are going to be populated with you know, the sushi builder, and then I can come into my custom components list down here, and you'll see the sushi builder right there. Now, we are not in the correct state to actually be able to see where the sushi builder is, so I'm going to use my States Navigator, come on down into you know, our sub-pages page, and then double-click on that custom component, and that will allow us to enter into you know, the various states of that custom component. So build your order, that's right there, one of the states of that sub-pages custom component. And the thing I really like about this implementation of Flash Builder, the Flash Builder 4, is you can hit Command-0 and get like the full view of your design view, which you know, is just like most of the other Creative Suite applications. So that makes it you know, appealing. So down here in our custom components, we have our sushi builder you know, component that was made in Flash. So I can just drag that right on up to this page here. And as you see, you get like an animated preview of the SWIC actually working. But oh crap, I actually just realized that says click on items instead of click on food items to fill your bento box. So how would I go about changing that? Well, once you have a SWIC that was built in Flash, Flash Builder actually recognizes that it was built in Flash, and with it selected, you can say Edit in Flash Professional. There's a button there. Even if I were to just double-click on that component, it would ask me to select the FLA that this came from. Right, so there's the FLA. I'd say okay. So I can click that button or click click on the component itself, and Flash is just going to kick itself on open. And I've got a bunch of other files open in Flash right now, but hopefully in just a second it will open up the actual flaw. Maybe not. There we go, sushi order. And notice, just like with the round tripping in Illustrator, we have like a little button here saying "Click Done" when finished. So it'll kick you back into Flash Builder when you're done. So I'm just going to, inside the flaw that we created, I'll say, I don't know, yummy items. And now that that text is there, so I don't have to save or close or do anything. I just click Done, and that's automatically going to update inside of the SWC, right? As you can see, with exporting the SWIC, and it'll kick us back now into Flash Builder. Like I didn't kick that back myself. There were no keystrokes involved in the making of this demo. And so after the screen refreshes, I click on Yummy Items. There it is. So that's a little bit on the kind of high-level improvements in the data services and in the Flash and Flash Builder integrations and your ability to look at states and the component model in Flex at a very high level. Again, at 1 p.m. we're going to have Renon talk to us on a deeper level about those changes, and also the code productivity changes, in the coding productivity changes inside of Flash Builder, because there's a lot of them. But I wanted to go on over to Flash now to show you what's going on inside of the Flash IDE, because there's a lot of great improvements. So the first kind of call-out one, like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, is the text layout framework in Flash, and this is something, again, that we've had happening inside of Flash, that Flash Player 10 made available on an Actionscript level. So you could download the text layout framework from Adobe Labs and start doing using really advanced typography and layout features, but not via the Flash CS development environment. So now we've kind of taken the given interface to almost, well, not almost, every single thing that you can do in typography with Flash. And it's so amazingly robust, the difference between text layout framework text and classic text, and it mimics on a pretty high level of fidelity the InDesign layout text. Now it's not the identical text engine, but the Flash and the InDesign text teams are now very much in sync. And so when there's an update or a modification to the InDesign text layout framework, it's going to be in lockstep with, or Flash will be in lockstep with it. So the first thing you're going to notice is actually there's improvement not only to the amount of things you can do with typography, but also to the layout framework itself. So a text frame that you would create in Flash now can understand the concept of overset text, which in the past only InDesign could do. So how do we know that? Is because we have a little threading out port right here on the right-hand side of our overset text frame, and it's red telling us, hey, you have overset text. So to solve that problem, I can just grab the edge of the text frame and kind of scale it out, and now that threading out port is not red anymore. As you can see, the text isn't overset. If I Command Z it, and I click on that threading out port, now hopefully you'll notice by a connect that my cursor has actually now changed to place the overset text in its own brand new text frame. So just having clicked that, I can now kind of go down and make my own text frame. Right, there we go. And this is going to be a threaded text frame. In other words, the text is going to flow from this text frame into that one, so that if I make changes, for example, and I say, here I am presenting at TE via connect, right? Say the text is actually flowing from one to the other. And of course, we can change the flow. We can change right here in our properties panel. We have a container and flow pull down where we can change the direction from right to left or left to right. If we want to, I can actually, color the background of that container to kind of match. And then, of course, we always have the positioning and sizing, so we can move it up and down. That's not new at all. But just to make it seem that this was all one text frame, you can have a pretty good sense of fidelity there. So, also a lot of stuff in the container and flow is useful if you're doing localizations or multilingual, and text is supposed to flow in some languages differently than it does in other languages. So, an example might be if I were to grab all of this text and I'm just going to delete it, come on back to Bridge, which I'm using in replacement of the Finder. For this example, right, I'm just going to open up some Japanese characters. And Japanese does not, by the way, I don't know if anyone on the call recognizes Japanese or knows Japanese, but it does not flow horizontally. It flows vertically. I'm going to go ahead, come back into Flash, and I can just paste those characters in. And not only does Flash, the Flash text layout framework recognize those characters, but it can also, perform, all kinds of actions on them. So I'm just going to set that to be kind of a brown background, and you can't really see the text now. It's like now you'll see that it's actually white text. And now with that container, I can localize this to be Japanese. So you'll notice that there are actual commas that are inserted where the commas need to be in the Japanese. And then I can come back into, whether or not I want this to be horizontal or vertical text. And now the text is displaying vertically instead of horizontally. And then way up here in the flyout menu, I can turn right to left options on or off. Then when I come down into paragraph, right, if this is a right to left language like Hebrew or Arabic, and I pasted the characters in incorrectly, I could actually change it to display right to left. Now that doesn't look good for Japanese, but it's one of those things that you can't even do this in InDesign right now. So some of the InDesign people see this and they're like, "What?" And that they don't actually make that sound. But anyway, one of the other great kind of standout features in text layout is support of ligatures. So this example right here, you can see that the ligatures for this for this particular text frame, the T and the H are actually linked together, right? And so that's kind of a common ligature that you might experience. If I come into my advanced character properties, I can actually change the ligatures from common to minimum. And as you'll notice, that ligature is broken because that's kind of minimizing the ligatures are. But depending on which font you're using, there might be really exotic ligatures, like for stuff for like F's or S's or some of that stuff where they connect, or A's and E's that are next to each other. So that's a very nice consideration. And just so many other different types of typography controls in here that are really amazing. You can also, just like Steve, and maybe you were on Steve's earlier piece of the call, but you can also split columns. So if I have this single column text, and I were to come into container and flow and change that to 2 columns, just hit enter, and now I've created 2-column text. So it's not quite like it's a bit like the splitting columns in InDesign that you've seen. So this is a really, these are just kind of the high-level text features that are now available inside the IDE in Flash. So, so the next piece is something that has had a lot of, this is a highly requested feature, but there are also a few kind of like, details about it that I would recommend, and I'll recommend this resource kind of at the end, looking into, because it's a huge topic, and we've got a lot to get through. But the topic is XML-based flaws. And so why would you possibly want something like an XML-based flaw? Well, first of all, you would want to be able to switch out pieces, graphics, components of your Flash file, or of your ActionScript-driven Flash project dynamically. And just to show you a simple example of this project was actually brought over inside of InDesign, or it was designed in InDesign and then exported from InDesign as an FLA file, as an XML-based FLA. So when I double-click in here, what was created in InDesign is this slideshow, or this multi-state object that has five graphics. That those buttons, if you click back out, these buttons are actually programmed to to go through that multi-state object and display those slides. So that graphic of this guy on the bike, let's say we wanted to kind of switch these out dynamically, or we just wanted to not have the guy on the bike facing to the left. We rather wanted to have him facing on the right. We wanted to saturate these colors a little bit more, but we didn't want to have to do it inside of Flash, and we didn't want to even have to open up Flash. What we would do is we'd take this file, we'd say save as, and instead of an FLA document, we'd save it as a Flash CS5 uncompressed document, or XFL. Now, the XFL file is really just an FLA file unzipped, because now the FLA file format is it's like a UCF, Universal Container Format, which is pretty much the same thing as a zip file that holds all of the assets that you're going to see when we create this XFL file. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call this City Guide Uncompressed. Go ahead and save it out. Come on over to Bridge, and there's our City Guide Uncompressed file. And this is what's created here, right? We've got the DOM document, which is the XML that basically describes everything in your document, all of the tweens, where all of the scripts are, where they live, and in our library here are all of the page layouts, and this is just XML describing the page layouts, and any fonts that we may have embedded. Any of the components, and of course in here are any of the bitmaps that we're using, and most of that stuff is vector. So here's gallery image right there. Now if I come over to my Finder and I grab another version of that gallery image, I just drag that in there. Obviously Bridge is going to say, no, I don't want to do that. But notice that it's a different gallery image, right? In that gallery image, it's more saturated, and the biker's going to the right and the left. Come on back to Flash and close uncompressed.xfl, and then just open it back up. And in just a second, you'll be able to see. Right, so it's been replaced. So I'm sure you can just use your imagination for how these, how you can dynamically switch out, assets in your Flash movies at runtime. But this is also useful if you're using any type of SVN, or any type of versioning system, because every asset, every XML file, every piece of it is diffable, by a versioning control system. So that's bringing a lot of power. So let's see, what else do we have? You've probably heard of the code snippets panel, because you're probably like, oh, I would never use code snippets, but I'll show it anyway, because it does actually make some tasks a little bit easier to do on a day-to-day basis. And now I just have to find exactly where that is. Hold on a second. Not save it at all. There we go. So, just a simple example of where you might use this new code snippets panel, and I'll open it up for you to see. A lot of developers, when they see this, they're like, well, I would never use this, and, I would never write my code this way. But the truth is, if you're trying to do something down and dirty, it might actually help you. So, this button that we have right here is obviously to play back the video that's hovering behind it, but there's no code associated with it. So in our code snippets panel, right here, you can actually just apply code to whatever you have in the background. So I happen to know that this video is called, I'm trying to grab it. There we go. It's called cycling video. So I'm just going to copy that. See, come in, grab my button. And so if I want that button to play the video, I would just come on down to my code snippets panel in the audio video folder and say click to play video and then apply it, right? Add to current frame. As you can see, an Actionscript is dropped in the first frame of that timeline. I'll collapse my panel as well. So now, I mean, you know, it's a very simple, you know, function that's written with an add event listener to, you know, listen for the mouse click to play this function and or to execute this function, and the function will go against that cycling video. Now, if I hit Command Enter to actually, you know, use it, you'll see that it you know, for down and dirty stuff, it works pretty well. You can also create code snippets, your own code snippets, and then, you know, export them as XML or, you know, what have you. So, right, so now that video button works pretty well. Okay, so now let's head on back to, you know, to really look at some of the Actionscript panel enhancements, or some of the Actions panel enhancements over here. So over here in my library panel, have a look in my movie clips folder, and I've got a map-based movie clip. I'm going to go ahead and click into that. And on frame 15 in the Actions panel, we actually have a little bit of Actionscript in here. Right? So I'm just going to comment this all out. Right, to just show you that, you know, we finally, you know, we really took significant enhancement in the Actionscript editor. You know, so what you're going to see is that when I start, you know, start creating this dispatch event. Right, hold on one second. Right, when I start creating this dispatch event, you're going to see that the code editor brings up the fact that I want to add an event here. Right, so the code hinting window, you know, the event class is automatically highlighted, so I can double click or I can hit enter. And you know, if I go to a new line and start creating a function, let's see, function. Oh, notice by the way, up top here, that you know, Flash like automatically inserted the class import statement or event up at the top of the Actionscript editor there. So you know, if I'm going to go ahead and make a new function, right, let's call it. Right, so we get that you know, code asking me with code completion asking me if I want void. I just open up my bracket. When I hit enter, it's going to, you know, close up my bracket as well, right? So inserting that closing curly brace, you know, that's something that was in Flash Builder for a long time, and it has not been. Let's go ahead and close that up. I'm going to open up a new file called Animated Banner. Right, so in the Animated Banner folder. Not have it here? One second. I'm going to show you this. We have a random number generator. Where did I put it? All right. I'm just going to show the original here. Go back to, oh, not even something that I wanted. Sorry. Bear with me one second. Show the original. There we go. So in our animated banner folder, inside of our COM folder, inside of utilities, we have this random number.as. Let's just open that in Flash CS5. So this is just a very simple Actionscript file, you know, that's going to generate a random number, right? So, you know, we've got a function called getRandomNum, right? right? Which is just a generate a random number. So let's come on back to our animated scanner right now, and we're going to have a look inside of the movie clips inside of here, and we're going to go down to the view. Right, so inside of the move section movie clip, we've got a little action script inside of here. And so, typical calling of this function right here. And so I'm going to just comment all of this out. Okay. So I am going to go ahead and import. Right? And I'm going to say com. Notice that the utilities is already in there. I'll hit enter, and then I'll hit dot, and notice that random num, which was in my utilities folder, is recognized. Right? Flash actually knows the external class value now. Right? So pretty powerful. And then we're going to go ahead and put a semicolon. Okay, our random num. That, and what are we going to put in there? Right, and notice that random num is already in, so we don't click that to get into this variable. Right? And go ahead, right, so what's it going to be? It's going to be a new random num. Right? Very nice. So we've got that custom class section, which is something that Actionscript has wanted for a really, really long time, and hopefully it will be an extremely useful and valuable set of class. So with only a few minutes left.
Hey, Jerry.
Yeah.
You seem to be cutting in and out a little bit. I don't know if you're away from the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No problem. That's better. Yeah.
Sorry about that. So that's just showing you a little bit of the ability of the Actionscript editor to do custom class introspection. And Renaud will address like some of the other code enhancements, but that was just like a taste of how to do how the Actionscript panel is improved. So there's also, everyone loves the bone tool, right? And I showed that last year, and I don't know if you guys use it at all inside of Flash, but as you notice, this animation right here is actually utilizing these bones, but there's no actual animation applied to it. So inside of Flash CS5, we've actually created new ability to create spring for bones. So if I give that bone a spring value 20, I go back to the first frame. Right, so now you're going to notice that there's a spring in that bone, in that IK, that inverse kinematic property. So of course we don't want it to wave all around. We want it to actually, be treated with real, kind of physics capabilities. So we can damp that down, right? Or we can apply damping. So it'll change the rate of decay of the spring strength. So if I just hit 80 in there in the properties panel now, go on back, notice that now when I do that animation, there's actually a spring, it kind of decays that spring over time. So, very nice new kind of enhancement in Flash. The last thing I want to touch on in Flash, and with this, and I'm not sure, James. I mentioned that I would touch on Dreamweaver, but I'm not sure, like how many folks in here really want to go through Dreamweaver. If you think it's a
guys, yeah, I'll leave it to everyone on the phone. Guys, what are you thinking? Dreamweaver, yes or no?
If there are any improvements for HTML5 or something, I think it would be nice.
So right, so excellent question, and so HTML5 is obviously something that Adobe is keeping very good tabs on, but unfortunately, with it being such a new specification, HTML4 not even being implemented so much, so in every browser on the planet. It's a matter of best practices needing to emerge around HTML5 before we start building tooling that really addresses it fully. So, I think you can use Dreamweaver to create HTML5 content for sure, and you have the WebKit rendering engine inside of Dreamweaver to deal with it. But I don't think you're going to get, real tooling in CS5 that's going to address any of the new, any of the kind of new best practices, because they're still kind of emerging around how to use video, how to use the canvas tag. What people are doing with it right now is obviously quite rudimentary compared to what they're going to be doing it by the next time there's a release of the Creative Suite. So it's definitely something that Adobe is taking very seriously and looking at very intently. And I don't know if any of you guys went to Max. I seem to remember some of you did, but there was an example during Max, and you can find this on Adobe TV. They recorded it. It was somebody taking a vector path from Illustrator, and I would show this to you. I only don't have a good demo of it, but they would just select a vector path in Illustrator, copy it, go over to Dreamweaver, and paste it into the canvas tag, and it would appear one-to-one. And it would look beautiful, and I think they even did an animation. Like they created in Illustrator you can do very simple animation, and they created a simple animation in Illustrator, copied it, pasted it in the canvas tag, and it worked. It was great. So yeah, I definitely, if you look in the Max 2009 videos on Adobe TV, it's one of those things that is just mind-blowing. You have to see it to believe it type of thing. But, are there specific integrations or specific kind of tool sets in CS5 for that? Not really so much. Anyway, so I know that you guys, and I don't want to go too far over time, but I just wanted to show, this one example of a local Pix application, and this is obviously meant for mobile because of the screen size. So one of the new things also in Flash is your ability, if you're using a document class, and I'm just using a main document class, that when you edit the document class definition, a new window comes up asking you if you want to edit in Flash Builder or Flash Professional. So I'm actually going to edit this in Flash Builder. And so I'm just going to go ahead and say, just click through there. So it's going to open that document class inside of Flash Builder. Right, there it is. And there's a local Pix Actionscript. That didn't seem to come in the way that I expected it to. Builder. There we go. Okay, so it's main.as. Got up here. So if I scroll down, right, Flash, Actionscript, has all of the APIs, right? You'll notice up at the top that we're importing the accelerometer classes, the multi-touch classes, the touch event classes, right? All the different classes that you need to create, kind of a mobile experience. And so, down here right now, if I were to actually, where did I go? Right, so when the mouse events, if I turn the mouse events on and I turn hide arrows off, what you're going to see is that now inside of Flash Builder, when I open up a document class from Flash, I could publish this in Flash. I could test the movie in Flash. I could debug in Flash right here just with these little buttons. So I'm actually just going to test this movie in Flash. Before I do that, I'm going to come back to Flash and make sure that my test movie is set up to test in Flash Professional. Second. So now I'll come back to Flash Builder and I'll click the Test in Flash Pro. Yep, I'm going to save my changes. And so now, hopefully you can see this via Connect, right? The mouse events, in other words, the hover states, are enabled, and my cursor is changing to a hand symbol. And when I go through this mobile application, I have these navigation arrows where I can go back and forth, right? So that's really great. That's really nice. Now, if I come back into Flash Builder and turn mouse events to false and hide arrows to true, and I save that, and I need to make sure inside of Flash that Control Test Movie in Device Central is enabled. Oh, hold on a second. See, so now Device Central is popped open, but if I go back over to Flash Builder and I click Test, it's going to pop open my new one in Device Central. And so now there's no mouse events enabled. So how do I actually test this? And notice that in Device Central, we're looking at Flash Player 10.1, 320 by 480 for a multi-touch display. So I can't click, but if I hold down the Alt key, it's going to, if I hold down the Alt key and then let go of the Alt key, it will imitate the touch, right? So, and I can also hold down the Alt key and do simple sliding like that. If I have, that type of multi-touch technology, if you have, resizing or stuff like that, it's very easy to do. And in the multi-touch panel in Device Central, you can actually control how many pixels somebody's finger takes up. So right now, our finger's a little bit bigger, right? How big are the fingers that you expect to be touching this application? How big are they going to be? There's also an accelerometer panel in Device Central that will allow you to test for the accelerometer. So notice that I'm just clicking, grabbing the edge of the kind of simulator device, and you're seeing how your application will respond to gestures, right? And if you have something in the accelerometer that will respond to a shake, notice that shake left and right. I can play and pause that shake. Hopefully you can see that via Connect. Right? If it needs an up and down shake, you can do it like that. If it needs a back and forth shake, so very cool. And you can also set the sensitivity to how that's going to be, right? If you need to be previewing it as an upright, so to if the application needs to be tilted up and down, you can test that as well. There's also if you're going to be using GPS or geolocation services. There's a whole testing environment for that as well. And when in the second part of, well, actually, I think I heard the announcement that Flash Player 10.1 is going to be at the Google I/O conference later this month. They're going to be showing a whole bunch of Android devices that have Flash Player 10.1 and Air 2 running on them that are going to start shipping. So, what you're going to see inside of the device browser, you'll see all the different versions of Flash Lite in here, but then you'll start seeing, the Google Android. You'll see the Nexus 1. You'll see the Droid Incredible, from Motorola. You'll see all of those as Flash Player 10.1 or Air 2 devices that you can then test against. And inside of Device Central, you can kind of automate that testing very simply, and you can record your test. You can actually video record, some of those tests, right? So inside of test, you would say record test script. You'd walk a sample device through all of the paces in your application, and then if you wanted to create a video presentation, then that would, record that test, and you could share it with somebody, or you could walk through. You could play that test script against multiple devices, and it would run through. So instead of having to output them to all these different devices to test, you'd be able to do it that way.